everybody. Hello. All the cool kids still hanging in here. How y'all doing today? Come on, there we go. Hi, everybody. Everybody looks so nice. I'm Akilah Hughes. I'm so privileged to be here. If you're not familiar with my work, that's okay. I am a WGA Award-nominated writer, a comedian, and a podcast host. If you have heard of me, it's probably because I hosted more than 400 episodes of Crooked Media's #1 daily news podcast, What a Day, from 2019 to 2021. If you don't know, it was a pretty big time for news. Anyway, before I get started, I just want to say, great job to Bob Iger. I don't know if you all are familiar with the band Bon Iver, but me and my friends like to call him Bobby Gare, so great job to Bobby Gare. Anyway, I'm so honored to be sharing the stage with three exceptionally inspiring individuals who I'll introduce in just a moment. But let's just start with a little background on why we're here today and what the theme of this session really means. This session is inspired by the bigger mission behind Canva, their two-step plan. Step one is to build one of the most valuable companies in the world, and using that value, step two is to do the most good that they can. This plan has formed a crucial part of Canva's culture, and they've embedded this in their DNA from the very beginning. Today, we're bringing together three change makers who embody that value in their work to discuss what being a force for good means to them. So please, welcome to the stage, Thomas, Zuriel, and Michael. Cute. Welcome in. Welcome. Oh. All right, so our talk is about being a force for good, and these three really embody that. So I'm going to throw it to each of them so that they can introduce themselves if you're not familiar with their work, but you'll be inspired either way. Michael, if you want to start us off.
I would love to. My name is Michael Threets. I am a librarian. I'm a library kid. I talk about library kids and library grown-ups. I share library stories. I'm library's biggest fan. I was a homeschool kid. My mom homeschooled us, raised us in libraries. It's everything I've loved my entire life. I recently left the library to prioritize my mental health. I didn't know what was going to happen when I did that, but now I get to do cool things, visit libraries across the nation. I get to talk to cool people like you all here at the Canva stage.
Yes.
And just spreading as much good as I can, convincing people that I am so happy that they're here in the world. We all have a story to tell. And then I also have two cats. I told them I was going to introduce them. Machine Gun Kitty and Kissing Cat Barlow. And today I have started my one-year pursuit of finding my own joy. So what better way to pursue joy than here with you all on the Canva stage?
Awesome. All right, next we have Thomas. Thomas, take it away.
Yeah, my name is Thomas Dambo. I come from Copenhagen in Denmark, and the last 11 years I've been traveling around the world in 17 countries and now 18 states. I built giant recycled sculptures out of different types of scrap wood and different materials. Then I used to be a rapper, so I also tell stories, and but now instead of rapping about how cool I am, I rap about recycling, and I rap about my trolls, such as this one in Breckenridge here. And then I use volunteers who help me collect different types of materials and clean it and organize it. And now I've recycled more than 20,000 pallets into trolls, and I've had probably more than 15,000 volunteers who are a part of my big global recycling school.
Excellent. Amazing. And last but not least, we have Zuriel, if you'd like to describe your work for the crowd.
Thank you so much. I don't know why. I was really hoping we get to ride the elevator that was here
I
earlier
know.
to come up here. But my name is Zuriel Odewale. It's so good to be with you all. I'm a filmmaker, a global education advocate, and also a presidential advisor. So filmmaking, pretty simple. You tell stories. I like to tell untold stories. I like to bring awareness to different issues around the world. And also I like to tell positive stories. In a world where there's so many negative things going on, sometimes it's nice to remind ourselves of the positive things that are out there. Then my education advocacy started when I was 10 years old. And with that, just trying to get more out-of-school children, especially girls around the world, back into school so they can have that good education.
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent. So I have individual questions, and we can start there. So I'll start with you, Michael. I'm a big fan of yours from TikTok. I'm sure some other people here as well. But you spoke a little bit about how you were homeschooled, and your mom really took you all to the library, and that was really where you found your passion. But what moved you to do work in your community's library? Like, when did you decide, like, I like it here, but also I'd like to be involved?
You know what? That's such a great question. I never people always ask when did you know you wanted to become a librarian?
Yeah.
And I never actually I never made a conscious decision to become a librarian. It was just being a lifelong lover of libraries, bringing my cat, not the two silly named cats, my family cat, to a local pet parade at the library where there's you wouldn't believe it. There's cats, there's dogs, there's snakes, there's lizards, there's guinea pigs, no leashes, no crates in sight. But that embodies what the library is. It's a fun place. It's a place for everybody, everything.
Yeah.
We don't want animals in the library, but they sometimes invade the library. And I think that just meant so much to me as a library kid, doing the Pizza Hut Book It Challenge.
Yes.
Reading books to get free pizza, incentive. Yes. That's how we get a bit more literate, pizza and books.
Yeah.
I think that's just what it meant so much for me is the library is a community. That's where we're all neighbors. Mr. Rogers is one of my personal heroes.
Aww.
He talks about all the helpers, look to the helpers.
Yeah.
It's the teachers, it's the creatives, it's the library people. And when I first applied to the library, I realized how true that was. And I just wanted to commit my life to literacy, to library joy, and it's just been such an incredible time meeting library people. I love hyping up library people.
Yeah.
They're so extraordinary. They do such a great job, and they inspire change, they inspire creativity and joy, and I just want to hype them up and tell their stories as much as possible, because they just tell kids, library kids, once a library kid, always a library kid. Everybody in the audience is a former library kid, current library kid, and we all just get to keep on being our best selves. We all just deserve to tell our story, and I'm just so honored to be a part of that.
Excellent. Very cool. So my next question is for you, Thomas. You've created incredible works of art. We saw one of the trolls that you've built, but these are huge works of art, lots of trash that you have to find. It's very collaborative. You work with the communities to get that together so you can make the art. And I think that that's really inspiring. So what was it like the first time you witnessed the effect of your art impacting someone in a positive way? And how has that reaction really motivated what you continue to do this day?
So first of all, it's such a pleasure to get to work with something that makes other people happy and that makes other people see the world in a different way. And it's not like one time it happened, it's happened gradually through my life. It's been happening many, many different ways. But I can come with an example from last year. Last year, I built an exhibition that's called Way of the Bird King. I built in 100 days. I was on a road trip. We bought a big old mobile home, and we named it the Troller Coaster. Mm-hmm. And then we drove it all the way from New Jersey to Seattle, and then built 10 sculptures along the way, hidden deep in the woods all over the country. And along that, there came a family and told me a really touching story about that their son had been in Denmark and had traveled around and found some of the 40 sculptures I have in Denmark, and that it had meant a lot to him. And then it's also a bit of a sad story because he dies of cancer, which is really, really sad. But then his family, in the memory of him, starts traveling and helping building my sculptures across the United States with his little sister and his brother and his two parents. And I think it's such an honor and a privilege for me to get to experience this and to give them that hope.
Yeah.
But also it tells me, or it tells all of us, an important story that these things that we discard as trash and that we basically empty our resources in our world and we let them become trash and we put them to the landfill and leave them as a problem for the generation. These things can create hope and they can change the world and change our future. So that was really a touching story for me. So that was one of my favorites.
Oh, that's incredibly sweet. Yeah, I think, of course, yeah. I mean, it's really excellent that you've been able to connect with people on such a personal level, and the fact that now that family has that legacy of getting to travel with you and get to, make something out of their grief. That's really special. Zuriel, you're very young and very cute, and I'm very excited to talk to you because it's amazing that you've been able to do so much so young. So Zuriel's a documentary filmmaker, and you spoke a little bit about how you craft your stories, and you're letting the audience see true stories, but also undertold stories, and you let it unfold through the camera's eyes. So what have you found to be the most powerful component of a story to include or highlight when you're creating works designed for impact? Like, when do you know you've really nailed it and you're like, oh, they're gonna feel this?
Impact. I think, honestly, it has to, first you have to know your audience. You have to know what that impact is. Is your goal to inspire someone to go out and make a difference? Is your goal to inspire the next generation of youth that, they can become CEOs, heads of state? It really matters. And even off screen, because when we talk about storytelling as a filmmaker, obviously you get a camera, you get a lens, you tell a story. But I've also seen the power of words. There's this saying, by show of hands, I know we all went to school. You guys remember show and tell in school? Everyone? Yeah, you bring your pet, your younger sibling, if they're being mean to you, you want to show them off to the class. But so there's this, I like to take that phrase, and instead of saying show and tell, I say show and not tell. I've learned through filmmaking, so I've been doing filmmaking since I was 9 years old.
Wow.
And on that journey, I've learned how it's so important to show a story and not just tell a story. And so through film, you can create a documentary and just list off statistics, X amount of million, this happens, this happens. But when you actually choose to show that story, either through your own lens as someone who's just experiencing it, or through the lens of those who are actually going through it, it makes all the difference.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to even just words, so along the way, as an education advocate, I speak to students in school about the need to stay in school and finish their education. But sometimes, it's not the kid's fault they're not in school. A lot of times, there's improper policies in place. And so I also speak to heads of state, presidents, and prime ministers. I've spoken now one-on-one with over 34 presidents and prime ministers from around the world. So the presidents of Croatia, president of Egypt, prime minister of Jamaica, from all over, president of Ghana, president of Malta, to show myself as an example of what the girls in their country can do if they're allowed to go to school and get an education, and if they're also supported by their communities. And I've even seen the impact of that. One example, I met President Felipe Nyusi of Mozambique back in 2018, so I was 16 years old.
Wow.
And I was just showing myself as an example of what girls in his country could do, because his country had a very high rate of girl marriage. Age 10, 11, 12, girls are taken out of school, sold off to marriage, and that's pretty much the end of it. So I sat him down and I said, look at what I'm doing as a girl who is allowed to go to school and get an education. And I continued that conversation with him in his office, with the First Lady's office, and then 16 months after that first meeting, and with the help of many other voices, Mozambique formally outlawed girl marriage in the country, so that way their girls could go to school and get that education.
That's huge.
So yeah, it's just the impact of showing and not just telling.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, I'm going to come back to you, Michael. So let's talk a little bit about expanding perspectives. So you've spoken online about the power of libraries as a space where everyone belongs, and I think that you embody that. But how do you open minds about the library narrative as not only a space for education, but also as, the internet's calling it the third space, right? You have work, you have home, and where is that additional place? A community hub and a place in someone's mental health journey. How can you sort of, speak to that?
You know what? The library is it's such a powerful place for a community. I think I said earlier, that's exactly what it is. It's a place for everybody. If you're unhoused, if you're mentally ill, I suffer from a lot of things. And I like to tell people, you don't have to leave your anxiety outside the library doors. It's not like we're saying, nope, you can come in, but you have to leave your anxiety in your backpack.
Yeah.
You can have a panic attack in the library. Please don't. but you can. Library people care that much. We're going to get you help.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I'm trying to tell people through stories. Again, I was raised by people like Mr. Rogers, LeVar Burton, Bob Ross, Steve
The
Irwin.
helpers.
These people, the helpers, the people who just have a way about them of just their sheer enthusiasm, their excitement.
Yeah.
It just gets through to every single person. That's what your local librarian, that's what they do. You just don't realize it yet. That's how special they are. They just create this space where there really is something for everybody.
Yeah.
Not everybody can read on the same level. There are many people who, even adults, grown-ups, who don't have the right education. They can't read as well. They're like, oh, I'm not a bookworm. The library, it's not for me. I can't read books. And I'm like, guess what? the library, we're always going to be book pushers.
Yeah.
We're always going to be library card pushers. I have a library card tattooed on my arm. I'm the ultimate version of a library card pusher, but there's movies. There's DVDs, there's TV series. There's musical instruments.
Yeah.
There's board games. There's Wi-Fi hotspots. There's audiobooks. There's homework help. There's free legal help. There's so much. I mean, even in the meeting rooms, I've seen library families come together who have lost their rights to have their kids. Visitation happens in the library. There are these kids, they'll come back with their caretaker just so that they can be reunited with their mom and dad. And that's because the library is a safe place.
Yeah.
It's a place where people know they belong. And they don't just know it, they believe that they belong.
Yeah.
And that's what's most important to me, is just convincing people that, yes, this is the place where you belong, just as you are. Black, Asian, Mexican, LGBTQIA+, whoever you are, we are all neighbors, we're all community, we all want to be unified, we all want to come together, and that's where we create that place. It's a place where, for mental health, we want you to keep on going day after day. I posted a video the other day where someone said, I'm looking for a reason to stay. And I read some reasons from a book called Letters to You by Jazz Thornton. Just listing off reason after reason. That's all library people want you to do, is find your reason to stay. Find your reason to keep on going, to please stay just one more day. If it's books, if it's your favorite TV show, if it's your favorite horse, your favorite dinosaur, whatever it is, just focus on that and keep on going. I think that's what the local library is. It's just a house where we can all fit in together, in the physical building, and the e-resources. Libraries are everywhere. That's why I love that it's like my library was Solano County Library. There's the LA Library. I passed a barbershop on the way here, no knock to barbershops, but it just says like the barbershop. It doesn't say LA Barbershop, Santa Barbershop, just barbershop. And that's why I love libraries are like LA Public Library, Inglewood Library. Like, this is your library, this is your neighborhood, this is your place. Please keep on coming back. Find your joy here. If you're not ready for joy, that's okay. You can have bad days in the library, because maybe the next day, maybe the next year, you're going to have a year of wonderful, beautiful days. And that's what library people can't wait for, and that's why it is a third space. You can come in there. It's free. You don't have to buy things. You don't have to even flash your library card at us like it's Costco. You can. We're gonna be like, good job. We love that library card. Come on in. Come on in, neighbor. And that's what we're all about.
That's so lovely. Thank you for that. Absolutely. All right, so Thomas, honestly, like I'm amazed by your work. I wasn't familiar before I found out you were going to be on the panel, but then I went through all of it, and it's amazing how many different structures you've made. And so, because you're working with your hands, you're working outside, I wanted to talk a little bit about striking a balance between your sort of original artistic intention and empowering the life of its own that your work takes on after you've completed it. So, for example, you've created this masterpiece. How do you then, I guess, go about thinking about how to promote it online or places so that your work can be more international and shared?
So I think, like, I come from a graffiti and a street art and a hip-hop rap background, and when you work out in the public space, you're already changing the public space when you go and add something to it. So I think it's, I can have one intent with what I'm making, but the world might perceive it in another way, and then you're left with either, is that a problem or is it a good thing? And I always try and run with it, and I can come with an example I did a couple of years ago where I come to Kentucky, and I build a sculpture there.
That's where I'm from.
Oh, well, great. Well, then you can go to Louisville and see 3 of my sculptures.
I'll check it out next time I'm home.
So I built one of the sculptures there is called Little Elena, and she's like sitting on a big lawn, and she's like basically drawing up a feather of like, I don't know, 500 big limestone boulders from a construction site, a big feather. And then she has a bracelet where a local lady, she comes and gives me these geodes that she had found in her backyard on her piece of land. And then this nice bracelet, I tie it up with some grapevines from a tree, and so I always use all these things that I find. She gives me the geodes, then I find the limestone, and then I find the grapevines, and then I design my things with that. Then the exhibition opens, and the next day, the geodes from the bracelet are gone. And then, of course, I'm sad that somebody have taken it, but also somebody they really wanted those geodes for, and I'm sure it's not. they're not worth anything, you know? So it's probably like a child who was just really like, wow, those are so beautiful. It's a troll's bracelet geode, you know?
Yeah.
So then instead of being sad about it, I make like a post on my social media, and then I say like, my troll Lena, she lost her geode from her bracelet. So if anybody has like a feather or another geode or a beautiful shell or something that you could bring down to Alina and then give to her bracelet, then please bring it down.
Yeah.
And then now Alina, she looks a little bit like a trolley Christmas tree because now she's gifted so many things, and it's become this whole culture for this sculpture that people go and gift her things.
Wow.
So I just went with the flow of it, and then it became something else than I had intended. But then, you know, it's just like believe in the good things and the positivity, and then something good will come. And then, so I try and work with it like that.
Amazing. Oh, I love that. Very cool. All right, so Zuriel, we're going to talk about change-forward habits.
Okay.
So again, you know, you sort of made your career out of raising your hand and speaking to some of the world's foremost leaders about how to spark change. And we hear a lot about courage and fearlessness. I think you'll hear about it for the rest of the day and the rest of our time here. But what are the habits or philosophies that have enabled you and those to whom you've spoken to sort of usher in that change?
That's a really good question. I think for myself, my philosophy is pretty simple. My philosophy, it's actually what I named. So once I started education advocacy when I was 10 years old, I created this little project where I'd go around and speak to kids in schools. I think I've done that now in 21 countries, spoken to over 54,000 youth about the power of education. And that project was called Dream Up, Speak Up, Stand Up. And that's basically my philosophy. With Dream Up, you know, my good friend, President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf once said, if your dreams don't scare you, then they're not big enough. And so I run with that, right? You've got to dream big, scary dreams, but dreams that are not only going to impact your life and the lives of your family, but also the lives of those around you, whether it's your community, your country, or even the whole world. The speak up aspect, I truly, truly believe in the importance and power of using your voice.
Yeah.
You know, each of us here has a voice. It's a gift to us. But what we choose to do with that voice, how we choose to help others with that voice, is our gift to the world.
Yeah.
And so for me, whether it's speaking up against girl marriage, trying to get kids into school, adding my voice to peace mediation processes, it's about using that voice to try and make a difference. Mm-hmm. And then the stand-up, you know, this actually comes from my mom and dad. You know, growing up, they always told you, if you see something that's not right or someone's getting picked on, like stand up for them. And so that kind of is also my philosophy, to stand up for those who can't stand for themselves, maybe those who don't have the platform to stand up for themselves. And even along with all of that, I know Nelson Mandela once said, I don't lose, I either win or I learn. And I feel like that's so important because I think being afraid to make mistakes is what can hinder our dreams, is what can prevent us from, you know, speaking up and standing up. So I think those two things are kind of what I hone in on and focus on and what drives me on this journey.
Amazing. Perfect. You all are so generous with your applause. I love it. And thank you for rocking with us before lunch. So I want to sort of talk to the full audience here that we have. This event is for creative people. You know, obviously Canva spans a lot of different, we saw all of the different departments of every business. But at heart, these are creative people using this platform. And so I want to talk about the sort of sea of creativity that we're in today. And I want to talk about process, because I think that so often you hear like from people who are already succeeding, who are already sort of in the midst of their journey, but we don't talk about how you really got there. And so I'm curious, and I'll just go down the line, but when you're creating something now, are you an outline person? Are you just sort of like, I'm inspired, let's just hit the ground running and we'll correct mistakes later? Like, what is your creative process? And are you still refining it, or are you really confident in what you're doing now?
You know what? I think for me. It's definitely refined. I'm still growing it. Each day is a new day. I'm like, you know what? I'm a new person. I'm learning. I love to learn new things each day. I'm a library person, a book person. I'm a lifelong learner.
Yeah.
But I have so many like intrusive thoughts. Like my mind. I don't know if anybody here has intrusive thoughts. My mind is full of them, 24/7, 365. 366 on a leap year. And like when I tell stories, like I'm chronically online. And when I tell those stories, I never know what story I'm going to tell. Like it just comes out of me. I'm like, you know what? This is what I need to hear today. Maybe it would help somebody else.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm like, you know what? Let me tell my story. Let me tell other people's story. Like, I consider myself to be like the narrator of library stories, like of library joy.
Yeah.
And it just is like, it's so fun being able to tell another story. There are these library kids who they'll come up to me in the grocery store and they're like, hey, Mr. Michael, hey, Mr. Michael. And I'm like, I'm so glad to see them, to still see them day after day. And like, because they're so creative, they're so powerful, they're so energetic. They want to know more. I remember one of them asked me like, hey, Mr. Michael, like you're on YouTube, you're on all the social media sites. Do you have any tips for young YouTube content creators? And I'm like, ooh, I don't really know about that. I don't know what to say. But I just told the kid, I was like, just be yourself.
Yeah.
Be authentic. Be genuine. Tell your story. Tell what makes you happy. What you talk with your mom, your dad, your grandma, your grandpa, your best friend about. That's what people want to see. Like that's how you can unleash your creative potential. That's your process. Do it for yourself. Find joy for yourself, and then it'll go on. Like I think like Zuriel does such a wonderful job with education, sharing those stories, making films for people to see themselves. It's so important. And I also just got introduced to Thomas, but I'm such a fan already. I mean, I've encountered so many negative trolls. That I love the joy that Thomas does for trolls. I mean, now I'm going to start a new trend. I hope you have a conversation with Oscar the Grouch very soon. I think he would love to talk about trash with you. It would be so glorious.
True.
And I think like that's the process, just for us to have these conversations, to be able to grow ourselves. If it's on Canva, if it's being a beginner, doing these tools, growing up to being an expert level, whatever it is, just have fun with things. I think we only have one day at a time.
Yeah.
So that's my process. Just like, how can I be creative? How can I find joy?
Yeah.
How can I find happiness today?
Perfect. Cool. All right, Thomas, same question for you.
But I would just like to clear up a little misunderstanding that there might be in the world as the official spokesperson of the trolls, because the word troll, it actually originates from the word fishing troller. So trolls, like my trolls, they get offended when they get compared to the much less flattering internet trolls.
They're much different.
Just for correction. My process is that I imagine myself being a giant troll. So I see myself going out into, like, for example, if I would walk into this theater here, I would think, like, what would I do? There'd be a lot of snacky humans I could take. Maybe, like, I would jump out here. Like, maybe I would break out through the screen. So it's like, imagine myself being really, really big. And then instead of drawing it, I just have somebody take a photo of myself. And then also, I'm in the luxury now that I actually have two small boys that are 2 years old. So the scale from them to me is the same scale as from me to one of my giants. So I can use them in my mock-up process, be like, you can sit here, and then I'm gonna try and eat you, or whatever it might be. So that's a really funny thing. It just made me come up with a great concept a month ago, where I was playing hide and seek with them. So I took a big blanket, and then I was hiding under the blanket, and then when they find me, they run in under the blanket. And then I'm making a tent for them. So then I was like, I should make a tent. So now I'm making a big tent for humans to come inside that a troll is like expanding, like holding up. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm so inspired. Yeah, amazing. Zuriel, same for you with your creative process.
My creative process, I think, well, I'm actually really curious too. In the audience, by round of applause, how many of you like to do outlines, like you want to really plan your stuff out?
Wow, we're in an outline crowd.
Just a couple, okay. How many of you like to hit the ground running, just like go with whatever inspires you? Okay, see, those are my people. Because here's why. Outline people, you guys are my people too, kind of. But as a filmmaker, and I work so differently, I don't like do the storyboarding, I don't do like what's the script. In my mind, I visualize the end product.
Yes.
So like I play the documentary in my mind, the commercial in my mind, whatever it is, And then I work it backwards. I'm a work it backwards kind of person. And my English teachers disliked that so much. Because whenever there was an essay and they asked for an outline, I'd turn in a final paper because I can't do outlines.
Yeah.
But I think the coolest thing about being creators and artists and innovators is that it doesn't matter. You can have an outline, have a plan, or you can choose to just go with what inspires you. And whenever it's creativity and innovation, I feel like that's what's so cool about it. You don't have to have one way of doing it. There's no one right way, as you would find maybe in math or science or whatever. But I think that's like what's really cool about being artistic and creative.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about obstacles, which is obviously nobody's favorite thing, but we're all facing them all the time. And I'm sure that each of you has faced, levels of skepticism or resistance to what you're trying to do in your work. So how do you sort of maintain your motivation and your sense of spirit and commitment to your cause in the face of people doubting you?
I think that's probably the most difficult question you've asked so far. Is like, how do you handle the obstacles? I think I'm still learning to do that. I think for me, like my biggest obstacle is my own brain. It is my own personal mental health, be it anxiety, PTSD, depression, nightmare disorders. I sleep maybe 2 to 4 hours per night just because of the fear of having a nightmare. So for me, like when I'm up at night, I'm like, you know what? Let me listen to audiobooks. Let me read books. Let me review different stories. Let me just find as much joy as I can. The wonderful times I had as a children's librarian. That's what I focus on is the happiest times of my life. Be it being in a classroom as a school librarian, visiting them and reading off the roster, giving kids their first library card. It's so important. It's so fun to give them that first library card and to make them feel seen. I remember there was 2 kids in class named Daenerys. If there's any Game of Thrones fans, we're in a world where now kids are named after Game of Thrones characters.
Yeah.
And I read it off and I said, okay, Daenerys, I have your library card. And the first kid was like, oh, you said my name right. You know my name. There was so much power. They felt seen. They were like, I didn't have to correct you. And I kept on going on. And the second kid named Daenerys, 2 Daeneryses in one class, said their name. And I said it correctly. Said, Daenerys, here's your library card. And they were like, oh, he did say it right, as if we weren't all in the same room.
Right.
Hearing me say Daenerys twice, but that's how funny and wholesome and unhinged library kids, children in general are.
Yeah.
That's how I fight the obstacles. It's just those little joys, those little moments of happiness of, you said my name right. I mean, I have an unusual name. My name is Michael, but it's spelled with a Y. So it happens for me and just being that's so cool.
Yeah.
And not making a big deal, but just finding joy in the smaller things. And then just for me with my mental health, I have what I call a mental health check-in team. So each day, each week, we just check on each other.
Yeah.
We just send messages, we send memes, we send gifts, we create funny artwork. We'll be as creative as possible. My friends are far more artistic than I am. They'll decorate my lily worm tattoo, my Where the Wild Things Are tattoo.
Cool.
They'll put hats on Grover, whatever it may be. Just fun little things like that. I think that's how I battle obstacles. That's how I battle negativity, is just focusing on the happier things, turning the volume all the way down as much as possible on negativity and turning the volume up on happiness and joy. That's the only way I know how to keep on moving forward, and it's kept me going this far. I mean, I've had so many bad days, but most of the 24 hours, when I think back, I'm like, you know what?
Pretty good.
More often than not, I survived. I kept on going.
Yeah.
I did it. I'm still here. And I'm just so happy to still be here.
Yes, very cool. All right, Thomas, how do you sort of face obstacles? And honestly, can you describe the obstacles? Are yours nature, or is it just the ability to get permits? What are the obstacles that I guess you're facing in your work?
It's the obstacle. It's I think when you become really successful, then you get used to having a lot of success.
Yeah.
And then you see the comments on your social media post, and then there's 2,000 comments. And then I think we all have this tendency to then we only look at the one negative one, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's, and my clients do this, So I'll build a sculpture somewhere, and then it goes viral, and there's 1 million comments, and all of them is positive. And then we let that one comment that's negative, then we let that one weigh as heavy as the 1 million versus the one. And I think it's important to listen to that one and listen to what that person has to say, but also let it be a little bit of a democracy. And also don't let the one evil voice affect you. Like,
Right.
listen to all the good ones, right? So that's
Don't be
one.
that client. If you all are here, if one person says something bad, ignore it. If 50 people do, okay, you can change the copy. But I think that's an important point because it's not only our own brains, it's oftentimes the people that we're working with who are overweighing those sorts of things. But continue, I'm sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt, but that's
Yeah.
a good gem to walk away with.
And then for me, the way I get I stay motivated is to set goals. Like you also said, set big goals, right? So now I've been in 17 countries, then I have to set a big goal. So now I'm like, okay, I'm going to make one in each state of the United States, and then try and kind of like be okay. So what does that look like? Okay, then
Yeah.
I need to make that many a year over so many years, and then I'm always, so I know that I'll probably achieve this within the next 5 years. Okay, so then is it each continent, or is it each country, or is it the moon, or what are we shooting for, right?
Yeah.
Because it gets boring if you don't have a goal. Then as soon as you can't visualize yourself somewhere else, then you'll stop progressing.
You should put one on the moon. That'd be a lot of fun, I think, for everybody.
I will do it. Yeah.
Daryl, how about you?
I think for mine, and it's kind of similar to yours, and this is a lesson I learned when I was 13 years old. I had an idea when I was 13, and being self-taught as a filmmaker at age 9, I truly believed that anyone with the right opportunity could do the same. And so, 13, bright-eyed, big ideas, I went out and told people, oh, I want to start a basic filmmaking class that I can teach to out-of-school kids and unemployed youth. And the questions that came at me, it's like, but you're only 13, you're too young, did you even go to film school? Why would they listen to you? It's so impractical. Like, all these different questions where without saying it, they were saying, don't even bother trying it, it's not gonna work. And it's then that I learned there's a difference between hearing and listening, right? Hearing is a sense, so words, words can come in, but you let them go right back out, right? Listening is choosing to allow what someone says to you to affect or dictate what you then do with your idea. And so because I didn't listen to those people, I went out, I started that pilot film project in Namibia, taught it to 25 youth, and just 9 months after that first class, one of the young women who attended, she went out, she borrowed a camera, borrowed some money, and actually made her first documentary about her community and the things that were going on in her community, and she got to shop that around to TV networks in her area.
Wow.
And that was, again, like I feel like sometimes there's that innocence of being a child, where if we have the right support, we won't allow what other people say to dictate and affect what it is we truly want to do. I mean, with that project, I've even had global companies and organizations come to me to partner, in this area. And so I feel like it's so important because honestly, like the reality in life is there's always going to be a long line of people who won't believe in you for any reason, for any reason, your age, your race, your gender, whatever. And so, why would you want to be part of that line?
Right.
You have to go out and start, if need be, a new line of those who do believe in you. And if you have to be the first person in that line. And I feel like it's through that perseverance and through that determination, when you overcome these obstacles, we can continue on our journey to create positive impact around the world.
Yes. Beautiful. That's so impactful. That's very real. I think that we are I think just our society, we don't talk enough about the fact that like there are a certain number of no's you just have to sort of go through, and people who don't see your vision, because if they did, they would have done it themselves. And so I think that you all are a real testament to just being like self-starters and just really committed to your own vision. So that's very cool. And I do think that you wouldn't be at Canva if you weren't that kind of person. I mean, why would you come, So I just want to keep going in that sort of direction. We have time for about 2 more questions. Let's talk a little bit about sustaining your passion and purpose, because I do think that also we live in a fast time where, you might get to do one thing and then there might be another opportunity, or there might be a weird stall because the industry is down, who knows? But your dedication to your work is so evident that I think we might have a lot to glean from you. So how do you sustain your passion for the work that you do and continue to find purpose in your advocacy, especially in those sort of moments where people are not really interested in helping or are more concerned with telling you why you can't do something?
Yeah, I think there's so much, like sustaining passion, it's such a difficult task. I mean, like you're saying, there's so many obstacles, there's so many ways. Things change day in and day out, especially in this creative world, be it social media, be it print, be it making films, those various outlets. Like things are changing, audiences change. They like one thing one day,
Right.
next day you're like,
The
yeah,
algorithm doesn't like it.
Yeah, we still like what you did, but not for us today. And for me, I'm like, you know what? I don't want to focus on that too much. Like so much so, like on social media, especially on like Instagram, I've disabled the amount of likes, so like I can never see how many likes I have.
Yes,
Like
you're not comparing.
I try not to see like amount of followers. I only ever know how many followers I have if someone tells me about the amount of followers. And that's because like for me, I'm trying to focus on my creative outlet. That's how I'm sustaining the passions. Like let me tell these stories, and often because like I'm a storyteller, like that's my creative outlet. Is for me is talking to other storytellers, talking to the two of you, the three of you, going library to library, conference to conference, talking to library people, talking to school librarians, talking to teachers, hearing what makes them tick. Like the true good human beings of this world, every good human being in this audience, I would love to like have conversations with them one-on-one because we all have a story to tell. I think that's like how I keep on going is like, I want to hear everybody's stories. I love stories. I've loved stories since I was a little kid. That's why I was a library kid. It's because of that obsession with stories. And we all have that story. Kind of like you were saying, like, don't focus on the negative. Like, what we want to do is, like, the one person is going to listen to you. If it's your best friend, if it's your mom, if it's your brother, if it's your dad, whomever it may be, like, keep on going with your creativity. Like that's like what I tell myself. That's what I tell other people. Like, don't worry about 1,000, 1 million people loving what you do. Like, do it. Like I said earlier, do it for yourself. Keep on doing. Like, pursue that passion. If someone tells you no, the answer maybe will be yes eventually. Make them say yes. You are that powerful. Your voice is that powerful. Your creativity is within you. If one person is looking, if one person is loving it, that is so amazing. I mean, I know Oprah Winfrey has a tendency like to find people's creativity, and she never tells them that she's been looking at what they're doing until she makes that offer. So you never know how your creativity is reaching.
Is Oprah?
Is
No, kidding.
like, I know. Like, she could
Are
be,
you seeing
she
this?
could
Oprah?
be listening, watching it right now.
Right
but,
now.
Like, keep on going. I think that's how I find my passion. Just like
I love
just
that.
keeping at it, one story at a time. And for me, I love like trying to again hype up other library people, hype up other people. That's my goal. Not myself. I'm like, this is so cool to be a part of someone's story. I think like that's the beautiful part of creativity. Is it's shared. It's something that we can all do together and enjoy together.
Yeah, absolutely. Thomas, we spoke a little bit backstage about how you were a rapper and now you're doing this. So, I mean, with that same sort of motivation about like, how do you maintain your passion for this? Like, can you talk a little bit about when you chose to pivot and also like, when you know it's the right time to like do more of the things you care about as well?
For me, my pivot from being a rapper became really natural because we had tried playing all the stages in Denmark. We had the big nightliner and we were sleeping in it and traveling around with all our friends, and we just grew up, and it was like, either I have to stick with being a rapper for the rest of my life and then it'll probably become a struggle, or I pivot when I'm on the top. And then try and take everything I learned, because I learned so much from making CD covers and release parties and posters and stencils and merchandise and music videos and all of the things that comes with it, right? So I can take I had a whole career, like a whole career of 8 CDs and 500 concerts or something, and then put that over to a new career, right? So that gives me an ginormous advantage over all the other artists who were starting out, right? So, but also I get to start all over again, so I get to redo all my mistakes. So I think that's a great thing to get to do, and it's nice to still feel that I'm on the rise after 25 years in the art business. But I think most of all of it, to keep motivated, is like to try and do things that matters to you. So don't go only for the money and the fame, but like try and do the epic things, like the things that is like, I have the opportunity now to, like I said before, like build 10 sculptures all across the country. It's not the most expensive I'm going to do, but it's the most epic thing I'm going to do. Who else is going to do that this year, right? Like so try and do those things, and then also try and invest all your resources in bigger facilities and bigger machines and better everything, but like invest it into making yourself happy. hire your best friend to come along, like do those things, like get a private chef to come, like do all those things that'll make it really, really cool and make it true to your concept. My concept is like as close to 100% recycled as possible. We're going towards being a negative CO2 next year. All my books are printed and like to a standard you can't even print in the United States. To try and do those things that is true and that is right for where the world is moving and that makes you happy.
Yeah. Very cool. All right, I think this will be our last question. So Zuriel, I want to give you the rest of the time, but if you want to talk a little bit about, sort of the legacy and impact and how you sustain your passion and decide to pivot or not, with all of your documentaries and the additional work you're doing to educate other people, when do you sort of see the need to pivot and how have you been able to maintain this? It's funny to ask you this because you are so young. So you're choosing to pivot your entire career, but you've been working for a long time. So I think that it'll be interesting to hear about how you've been able to sustain your interest in this and what you sort of see for the future.
Yeah, of course. You brought up two important things in that. You talked first about legacy and impact, and then you talked about maintaining that passion.
Yeah.
For passion and drive, I talked a bit earlier about the difference between hearing and listening, but I think, honestly, when there's moments of doubts and challenges, it's important to have that support. And my family's one of my biggest support systems. They're actually all here today. My mom, my dad, you see my two sisters and my brother. They're all so supportive. They're to push me, there to encourage me. And I think along with that, when you're passionate about something, it's internal, It comes from within. And so for me, whenever I see the successes that we've had over the last 10 years of doing this, whether it's that Mozambique example, or we've seen students like get up on stage and like go and speak somewhere, or go out and interview people, go out and speak to people they wouldn't ordinarily speak to, but because they came to these events and they saw the example of what a girl who's just like them can do.
Yeah.
Seeing those success stories. It's also, honestly, throughout all my travel, whenever I'm on the ground, whether it's in like Botswana, in Ethiopia, in South Africa, whenever I'm interacting with students, interacting with parents, seeing the challenges that they're actually facing every single day just reminds me of how much more work there needs to be done. And so that kind of continues to push me and drive me.
Yeah.
And this passion, honestly, like I'm gonna pivot here even to legacy. I think part of this thing with legacy is we think 20, 30 years down from now, what do we want it to be? But legacy actually starts today.
Yeah.
What you do today, the choices you choose to make today, how you want to make a difference, create a positive impact, all of that will build towards your legacy.
Yeah.
And so I feel like if we focus a lot more on what it is we can do now, how we can help people now, because eventually, ultimately, we all want our legacy, when people look at it, to be like, you know what? I want to go out and make a difference because of this person.
Yeah.
Whether it's in the tech field, creator field, library, artists, education, climate, whatever it may be, we want people to look back at our lives and say, I want to go out now and make a difference. And even coming back to that, passion is so important. You've got to be passionate.
Yeah.
Look, like everyone here is passionate. Thomas, Michael, if I sat up here today and was like, education's a pretty important topic. There's so many. Do you guys feel passion when I talk like that?
No.
Do you feel inspired to actually go out and make a difference? No, you guys can say it. No, right? And so I feel like that passion is so important. And along with that is just to also find out how to get people to care about what you care about.
Yeah.
If you're really trying to create sustainable, long-lasting change, one person can make a difference, but everyone together collectively can create even much more of a sustainable difference. So whether it's, for like 3 different things here, library, artists, and me, right? Different things, climate, library, and education, you can just like look at the root of that. What do we all have in common?
Yeah.
If I were to get up here on stage now and say, for example, you guys are into climate or tech or creativity, and I said, hey, there's this major issue of education. You might say, oh, that's great, but that's not really what I'm into.
Yeah.
But if I explain it and say, well, how many of you care about children? How many of you care about the next generation? Well, do you know that they are actually facing this issue of out of school and not having access to good quality education? And so really it's just about having that passion, knowing how to get others to care about what you care about. And then if you just focus on your day-to-day life and how you can make a difference, eventually your legacy will get built from that.
Yes, excellent. And I think that's a perfect note to end on. Thank you so much for being here and riding with us. I am so privileged to be here. One more time for Michael, Thomas, and Zuriel. And thank you all for being here. Appreciate y'all.